Hello and welcome to Cable Plus Property, your number one online educative platform on all issues related to land and landed properties. As you know, my name is Oiza, and at Cable Plus Property, our aim is to ensure that all Nigerians and non-Nigerians have at the tip of your finger every information related to land acquisition, land procurement, documentation, getting your properties registered, and obtaining your planning permit. In this video, I'll be speaking with the number one and number two of the Nigerian Institute of Architects, Lagos State Chapter. I mean Architect David Majekodunmi. He's the chairman of Nigerian Institute of Architects, Lagos State Chapter, and Architect Abiodun Fatuyi. He's the vice chairman of the Nigerian Institute of Architects, Lagos State Chapter. It's good to have you, sir. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. Okay, so as the numbers go, we'll start with the number one. Good to have you say again. Who is an architect and what roles do they play?
Thank you very much. The name again?
Oiza.
Oiza. All right. Now, an architect is someone who is responsible for the design and plans out, the building or the space, whether above the ground or below the ground or inside the ground. And is responsible not only for the design but for overseeing to the construction of the building to make it come true.
So if you're to describe an architect probably with one adjective, who would you say an architect is?
Actually, apart from our God, is the master of all. Because for anything, for you to occupy a space, you need an architect. And it's somebody who knows so much and who has to know so much and who should be able to plan your space for you.
Okay.
More or less, is the master of all in the construction industry.
Okay, Architect Abiodun. In the built environment, we all know there are a number of professionals. What role does the architect play in the built environment?
Okay, so I'll say the architect is a visionary. He's the one that envisions the building.
I thought that was the town plan.
No,
Oh.
the town planner. The town planner is literally, a town planner. So he probably would do layouts and schemes and excisions. And say this is how this land is this area is supposed to be maybe zoned commercially or private for residencies and all that. But the architect is the one that sees to the creativity or to the creation of buildings, of properties. He sits down and he puts down his ideas, taking in the requirements of the end user and then translating it to a wonderful piece of art.
So what does the Nigerian Institute of Architects represent?
Okay, so we are a group of architects that lead the advocacy for architecture. We are an institute and we make sure we create avenues for architects to thrive, to learn, to improve, and majorly interact with the government on how best it is that we can render our services to the society.
So what's in it really for an architect if an architect is not part of the Nigerian Institute of Architects? What do they stand to lose?
You can't be an architect.
You can't
Yes.
practice, is that true, sir?
You can't.
Yes. Now, the Nigerian Institute of Architects was created 62 years ago, by just a group of about between 5 to 10 architects who studied abroad, mainly in UK. And for any country, just like we have the NITP, the Nigerian Institute of Town Planner, like we have the body of ICANN, the Institute of Chartered Architects, this is a way of controlling quackery. Now, because according to the Nigerian law, the Federal Laws of Nigeria, Act 19, you cannot use the appellate architect unless you're a provisional member. How do you become a provisional member? That means you must have studied architecture from an accredited school. As it is in Nigeria, so it is in UK, in America. Fortunately, I happen to belong to two worlds.
Wow.
I'm a member of the Royal Institute of British Architects and also a member of the Nigerian Institute of Architects. And maybe just to add a little bit, a country rep of the American Institute of Architects in Nigeria. Now, it's very important, and like the program you're having, is to create awareness in people. Yes, I can say I once started as a draftsman because when I had a flair for architecture, you know, I was more of we call it architectural technician. And just like NITP or town planners or engineers, it's like you start from somewhere, you know. But you see, just because you're creative or because you can draw or whatever doesn't make you an architect. You have to go through the process. And the reason why you have the Nigerian Institute of Architects is to make sure that this body or this profession is well regulated and there are procedures. Like I said, you must have attended an accredited school of architecture, and thereafter you do the professional exam. Even at whatever level you study, whether HND, BSc, MSc, the most important is your accredited school. With HND, you can still further do your Finance 1 NIE exam, Finance 2 NIE exam, and then you do your PPE, which is the Professional Practice exam. And it's clearly stated in the Federal Laws of Nigeria, Act 19, or CAP 19, which is the Architect Registration Council of Nigeria. It's in black and white there. That after you've obtained your MSc or your Finals 2 NIE exam, you can use that appellate architect, which makes you a provisional member of ARCON.
Oh.
The ARCON is a regulatory body.
Okay.
But the NIE is an institute. These are benefits you get from NIE.
From being a member.
From being a member. Then after your PPE exam, which is clearly stated in the Federal Laws of Nigeria, that CAP 19, examinations shall be conducted. The examination shall be conducted by the institute. An interpretation of the law in that CAP 19 is clearly stated, Nigerian Institute of Architects. And it's after passing that PPE exam, then, just like in Nigerian, the regulatory body for town planners, they now registered you as, you now become a full licensed architect.
Okay. Now, would you say that all practicing architects in Nigeria are members of the NIA? And if no, then what is the NIA doing to protect members of the public from patronizing them? Because from patronizing, I mean those that are not members. Because if you're not a member, then it means you're not licensed, right?
Yes.
And that makes you adulterated, so to speak.
Okay. We have various cadres of membership.
Okay.
So really, you don't have to be a licensed architect to be a member of the NIA. We have student membership, we have graduate membership, we have associate membership, and then we have the full membership. So as a full member of the NIA, you should be licensed. You must be licensed to be a full member of the NIA. Now, what are we doing to protect against, I think your question would be to protect against quack, right?
Quacks, yeah.
Yeah, so basically we have to, like we're doing today, educate the public through channels like you have. We have to also let them understand the implication let the public understand the implication of patronizing quacks, because it leads to loss of lives, it leads to building collapse, it leads to buildings that are not properly built, and it leads to so many other things. We will say that the architect is almost at par with the medical doctor. You will not joke with your life. It's the same way we are telling them, hey, let the proper people that are well educated, that are licensed to do this job, do it for you. And that's why that's one of the strong advocacies we have, with the public. Now also we have regulations that we're trying to bring to board to make sure that the government is furnished with with a proper list of architects when it comes to approvals and submission of drawings, such that they know that, oh, these are the firms and these are the architects that can actually stamp the drawings and give you that authority to go and do your building approval processes.
Speaking of building collapse, I'm so glad you mentioned it. So who should be held responsible for building collapse? Mind you, you said the architect is the number one in the built environment.
Yes, so I'll answer the question. We have answered it every time.
Okay.
All of us. Because the architect will do his job, and then the client is trying to look for ways to cut him out of the project so as to save money. That is very, very foolish. It's like saying that I want to go into an operation, a theater room, and I want to pay off my doctor to bring in, somebody to do the operation. It's suicidal. So the client too can be held responsible depending on the scenario. The architect too can be held responsible if he's not properly, if he has not done his processes properly. The engineer too can be held responsible. So it's a collective, it's a collective blame. Like I say, it's a societal ill. Now, like my chairman will say, you can hardly hear that a building under construction in Europe or England or America has collapsed. It's very rare because there are building codes, there are guidelines that they use, and they use the right professionals for the right job. So you see, our society has allowed for gaps that will not help us to actually use the right people for the right jobs.
Now, what would you say are the possible causes of building collapse?
I'll split it into two.
Okay.
You have the private sector and you have the public sector. Now, talking about the private sector, or talking about both the private and the public sector, we have 6 or 7 professionals in the built environment. We have the town planner, because the whole thing starts from them. In the sense that...
Okay, are we
Yeah, let me tell you why I say the whole thing starts. They do the layout, they plan the city in terms of, oh, fine, we'll have school here, we have hospital here, we have religious center here, we have residents here. And from there, it develops that, okay, this is a low density, this is a high density area, this is a medium density area. These are all town planners' role. And even with the architect, you'll assist, because some of us has a specialty urban design. And with the urban design, it varies because there's so many things that comes into it. The street furniture, the ambience, the park, name it, which is an upgrade from the town planner's side. Now you have just let's take a typical site, for example, that you want to develop. Now, I met my client at Fatuyi. I want to have a school here. Yeah, fine. We come up with a concept. But the honor bestowed on the architect to have consulted the public sector, those who make the regulation, the planning regulation for that place. And these are the things that happen. That's why when they said everyone to be blamed, yes, both in the public sector and in the private sector. Now it tells you, yes, the layout for this area, we're meant to have a school here. And then the next thing, because man no man, he said, we're supposed to have a school here, but we're going to have a church. And you see, that has changed. Or we're supposed to have one family dwelling or two family dwelling units here, which is meant for a low density. And the next thing is you change it. When you're supposed to have a block of 2 flats or a detached house, you end up having 21 floors, like the Gerald Road. And it's rather unfortunate. Ikoyi is more like a slum. Ikoyi was initially designed for a low density. So you see where you take the blame. Now, the next thing is do the soil test. Because it's from your design, you know what you have to tell the structural engineer, what kind of soil is there, what kind of foundation. Then from there, other professionals in the construction industry are involved after your design. The mechanical and electrical comes in, the quantity surveyors, the builder comes in. There are other specialties as well, that comes in. And when you're talking about who do we blame? He said everyone, yes, but when investigation is done, you know who to blame. Sometimes, I'm sorry to use the word Ijebu, sometimes, we are penny wise and pound foolish. But the most important, which I appreciate being here today with you, is the awareness. Unfortunately, in this part of the world, we don't appreciate professionals. We don't appreciate professionals.
Why do you think so?
Number one is that attitudinal problem. Number two, we like to cut corners. And why do we have to cut corners when you're putting people's life in danger? He mentioned the typical doctor. If you want to have an operation, we see it happening. Instead of going to the hospital, meeting with the medical doctor, you go to under the bridge pharmacy or one local pharmacy or one local nurse, and you do the abortion or do kind of a self-medication. And you could see not only in the architectural or the built environment, the pharmacists are having problem. You read in the paper so many chemists or so many pharmacists are being shot because they don't have the license to practice. So it's one, the attitudinal problem in this country or within our blood. Two, the corruption side. Three, the enforcement by the government. Which now brings me to the question that does the government has enough resources on manpower? Even as I'm talking to you, America, UK does not have enough capacity for monitoring or for enforcement, but they outsource it. We've been involved in many exercises on policy making for Lagos State, for government. We discuss housing, we discuss everything. And you make recommendations, but unfortunately, it's like all the recommendations you're making is just going down the drain. In America, in England, UK, you have what you call accredited checkers. You have what you call third-party certifier. And these are to help the government where they lack capacity. Let's take, for instance, our still home on the Ikoyi Gerald Road. We're talking of 21 floors. As at 2008, authoritatively, I can tell you there are less than 10 registered architects in the entire Lagos State civil service. But today, thank God, we can boast of near to 60. And that was all to do with the NIE making the government realize and then encouraging the professionals to do their professional exams so that they can be registered.
Thank you too for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button below and like this video, share with friends and family. Also head on to our Facebook page and Instagram, follow at Cable Plus Property. My name is Oiza and I'll see you next time.